Egypt, timeless land of the pharaohs, born amidst the sands of the Sahara. A kingdom which derived its power from the River Nile. But legend has it that its first female pharaoh, Queen Hatshepsut, had ambitions far beyond these shores. Her aim, to conquer the sea. At Luxor, in the temple where she's entombed, a bas-relief illustrates the voyage of 5 royal ships she sent to a land named Punt, returning laden with fabulous riches.
To put a boat on the sea that's going to float and is going to make it, say, down to Punt and back, is a greater achievement in many ways than building a pyramid, which just sits there.
Did it really happen, or is it a myth? For the first time, archaeologists will attempt to recreate the voyage in a full-size replica of one of those ancient ships. The team's first challenge, to figure out how the Queen's ship designers could have built seaworthy vessels nearly 3,500 years ago.
We have to find out in only 1 year what they have had thousands of years to learn, and it is a daunting task.
Using only ancient techniques, can they build a boat to withstand the stormy seas? If they succeed, it may help prove the ancient Egyptians navigated the Red Sea to lands far beyond. Hatshepsut's life is shrouded in mystery. She was the first woman to reign over Egypt 1,500 years before Christ and long before Queens Nefertiti and Cleopatra. She governed for more than 20 years during a period of relative peace and prosperity. But after her death, Hatshepsut's memory was deliberately and savagely destroyed. Murals bearing her portrait were desecrated. Temple statues were smashed. No one knows why. The first queen of Egypt disappeared from official history, taking with her the secrets of her nautical expedition to Punt. Exciting new discoveries by an international archaeological team have revived the debate over Queen Hatshepsut's seafaring adventures.
I thought it would be broken, but it's complete. So it's very unique. But we found it in an area where there was much domestic activity.
It was associated with a fire pit, actually, with bones, and so definitely domestic or even, let's say, culinary activities.
The pottery and ceramics excavated here suggest this place was used as a bivouac. Could it have been the base camp for voyages to the mythical land of Punt? Buried in the sand, a set of wooden boxes provides an important clue.
The first time I saw these boxes, I was truly astonished. We had no idea that anything like this existed or would be here still after 3,800 years. We found an inscription on one of the boxes that in translation said the wonderful things of Punt. So that could not be a better answer to what they were used for.
Did the ancient mariners cast off for Punt from the bay that once existed here? Could they have left other traces of their presence? At Mersa-Gawassi, in a cave hewn into a coral terrace, Cheryl Ward, an archaeologist who specializes in ancient boats, makes a spine-tingling discovery. dozens of coiled ropes left in the caves by ancient seafarers nearly 4,000 years ago.
I think there were several of us who had tears come to our eyes the first time we saw this. It was so incredible, so unbelievable. We are all as amazed, I think, as Howard Carter must have been when he saw the treasures of Tutankhamun. The sense of the ancient Egyptians was so present. They left it here. We were the first to see it in 4,000 years.
But the most precious find is a wooden plank whose distinctive shape immediately reminds Cheryl of the boats depicted at Luxor.
Which part of the boat is this one?
This is from the Punt reliefs, of course. And what we see is this is the plank that can fit exactly here. And it touches here on the center strake.
Several dozen marine timbers are unearthed over the course of the excavation, and they are to be treated as delicately as if they were human mummies.
You okay? Can you get in?
Okay. So this way, yeah, to the other cave.
The ancient mariners apparently set sail from these shores for the land of Punt. But why would Queen Hatshepsut have ordered such an ambitious expedition? Before she became Pharaoh, Hatshepsut was a princess. The eldest daughter of King Thutmose I and Queen Ahmose. To preserve the royal bloodline, her father decided she would marry her half-brother, who inherited the throne soon after their union. But soon after his coronation, he fell ill and died. The young Queen Hatshepsut was now a widow with a stepson, too young to become Pharaoh. So Hatshepsut became regent, taking the reins of the kingdom. But she was a woman. Would patriarchal Egypt accept a female leader? Hatshepsut's challenge was to impose her power, and mounting a spectacular expedition at sea was one way to do it. The discoveries made at Mersa have rekindled the controversy over the seafaring capacity of ancient Egypt. Many of Cheryl's fellow researchers are skeptical of the find's value, arguing the items are not clearly dated and don't prove anything. They believe the voyage to Punt never really happened. How could she prove her case? Cheryl believes her only option is to reconstruct one of the boats in Hatshepsut's fleet, based on the archaeological finds from Mersa. That way, they'll know whether the boat was seaworthy.
And a whole range of tools and some very good shipwrights.
To carry out her project, Cheryl teams up with Tom Vosmer, a shipbuilder who is also an archaeologist.
Is there any reefing system on this? No. We probably need 2 sails then.
Okay.
Tom has designed and supervised the building of several replicas of ancient sailing vessels. He lives in Oman, in the Middle East, where he studies the old boats of the Indian Ocean.
When I was growing up, my father had a hobby of building ship models. There were old ship models all around the house that he had built. And I've been fascinated by old ships, by the sea, by sailing, as long as I can remember. And although I grew up 800 miles from the sea, the first chance I got to leave home, I went, and I just went sailing.
Cheryl and Tom's investigation begins in the Maritime Museum in Paris. The two researchers know that building a 3,500-year-old replica of Hatshepsut's boat presents a tremendous challenge. How can they recreate a ship when practically no physical trace of it exists? All they have right now are a few planks, some ropes, several anchors, and a reproduction of the bas-relief in Deir el-Bahari.
Figuring out how to make this ship watertight is going to be one of the major goals I have.
Any caulking, luting, anything
There's
like that?
no sign of caulking, nothing jammed in between the seams. There's no bitumen, there's no resin, there's no pitch, there's nothing.
I mean, to put a boat on the sea that's going to float and is going to make it, say, down the Punt and back, is a greater achievement in many ways than building a pyramid, which just sits there.
I think one of the things we need to do now is to go to Deir el-Bahari and look very carefully at the reliefs there. These are seagoing ships. They're great seagoing ships. They're huge. They are work ships. They have people who are rowing, people who are sailing. They have the cargoes piled up. As soon as they land, they begin to unload. They are a veritable treasure house of information about the seafaring.
And there's a lot of perhaps confusing things as well, that we haven't quite sorted out what they're trying to depict exactly. And I think we'll get to that when we start building models and have the actual things in front of us, and then we can sort out what those images are actually telling us in some cases where it's a bit of a mystery.
But if we can get some of the basic measurements down, that'll help a lot too, because they seem to be proportional.
These bas-reliefs are the only known images of the ancient vessel, but they're not complete. They only show the boat from one side. In Mercer Oasis, Cheryl found wooden planks and a rudder whose shape was identical to the one on Hatshepsut's boats.
You want the blade width at that point?
Knowing ancient Egyptians averaged 1 meter 65 centimeters in height, Cheryl and Tom conclude the bas-relief has in fact been drawn to scale. Now they can calculate the length of the ancient ship.
16,125.
Hatshepsut's boats must have measured a little over 20 meters. Hatshepsut knew that to rise from the rank of regent to Pharaoh, she would have to undergo a spectacular metamorphosis. To appear as a genuine monarch, She needed to relinquish her femininity, don the short kilt worn by kings, put on a false beard, and wear the pharaoh's crown. She also knew her success would depend on forging good relationships with the powerful priests of Egypt. An expedition to the land of Punt, though risky, might succeed in bringing back a valuable gift for the priests: large quantities of myrrh, the rare and highly sought-after incense they use daily in their temple ceremonies. An oracle had been sent by the gods. Hatshepsut ordered her royal steward Senenmut to build 5 ships outfitted with sails. Three and a half thousand years later, Cheryl and Tom embark on the next stage of their journey. They've come to study a much larger boat, resting at the base of the Cheops pyramid.
And I think that really ours is going to look a lot like this in terms of the general hull shape.
I mean, this is a huge boat.
This impressive 43-meter vessel carried the mummies of pharaohs down the Nile more than 1,000 years before Hatshepsut's reign.
But in some ways it's very similar.
Cheryl is intrigued by its keel.
It looks so much like the Punt reliefs, where you've got that nice little profile. Now these are common, I think, in boats that have to be beached or that are operating in areas where they may have reefs or other sandy areas. Because if you've got an ordinary keel dropping down there like a lot of modern sailboats do, that keel is going to get caught on anything that goes by.
The two researchers continued their investigation at the Cairo Museum. The display of model boats gives them valuable clues to the shape of the hulls and the earliest sails used in ancient times.
So these are Middle Kingdom models from the very beginning of the Middle Kingdom, around 2100.
An ancient fishing boat excavated at Dashur, south of Cairo, provides some crucial information. It's very similar to Hatshepsut's boats. Same shape, same proportions. Cheryl and Tom can now calculate the approximate width of their boat. Almost 5 meters. Now it's time to draw it, combining the relics of antiquity with the tools of the 21st century. In a modeling laboratory in Florida, the boat takes on a concrete form for the first time. The next challenge is to figure out how to build it, based on the evidence found at Mersa Gawassis.
There are a lot of difficulties right now because there are literally thousands of decisions to be made. How long is this plank? How wide is this plank? What angle should this shape be? Every plank is unique. We have about 45 planks on each side, and they all fit together in an interlocking way. They're not straight edges. And that's part of the ancient Egyptian plan for helping the hull to stay integrated, locked together like a jigsaw puzzle.
One of the amazing things, I think in Western mines anyway, is that there's no skeleton to build this boat around. We build the hull plank first. And the planks, the shapes of these planks that I'm working on now actually determines the shape of the hull, not the shape of any frames or molds or anything like that. Is it possible to make one? If Queen Hatshepsut's ships got to Punt, it is possible. Whether we'll be able to do that is another thing. But I think if you get a competent shipwright, they may think it's strange, but it's certainly possible to work something out like that.
Cheryl has asked her friend, Egyptian archaeologist Mohammed Abdel Mawid, to help her find the best shipbuilders. It seemed an impossible mission, but after searching for several weeks, he finds some craftsmen keen to take the challenge of building the vessel, a family of shipwrights living on the Nile outside Alexandria. Boat building here is a family affair, but have they the skills to do the job? The oldest shipwright, Mossad, is the most familiar with traditional building techniques. Yosri usually works on fishing boats. Their three brothers, Maruz, Hassan, and Hamdi, will soon join them. The first step is to study Tom's model.
That's the initial few strakes of planking.
Very nice,
Trying to understand how these all fit together. These two were very easy. This one is easy. These two, very difficult.
متابعين يا جماعه الكلام طبعا هو واضح الكيل بيقول لك هو الحتتين دول كانوا بالنسبه له سهلين في الشغل هنا برضو نفس الحكايه دي كانت صعبه شويه شبه السكينه
صعب شويه ايوه
فشيرل قالت له ايه قالت له ما دي بالظبط زي اللي احنا لقيناها في وادي جواسيس اللي هي على البحر الاحمر تمام هتبقى سهله حاجات شعار من هنا مخصوص عشان تشوفها كويس.
I think with this model they have been able to see in the 3 dimensions what is perhaps a little bit confusing in 2 dimensions, but now they can translate it completely from the drawing to this and they're going, aha, this is how it works.
Thousands of years after Queen Hatshepsut's reign, the shipbuilders of Rashid are summoning the skills of their ancestors. The archaeologists know there are no easy shortcuts. For the project to have credibility, the boat must be built using ancient techniques. But it's an enormous challenge. There's no textbook explaining the methods of the distant past. The techniques have to be reinvented.
Every every boat that's ever been built begins with laying the keel and the precision with which these shipwrights work with these very simple tools, levers, wedges, strings with the plumb bob. To see this happening here in Egypt, where we have the oldest plank boat, 5,000 years old, is very special for me.
What I've really enjoyed about this process is seeing this whole shipyard come together and concentrate on this one piece of work. It's just really quite remarkable. They all know exactly what they're doing. Here we go again with the third piece. I mean, it's fantastic, really.
Three months have passed, and it's getting hotter by the day. The temperature has tipped 40 degrees Celsius. Work has slowed. Cheryl and Tom have had to return home. Mohammed is now in charge of overseeing the construction process. The Egyptian archaeologist becomes the third pillar of the scientific team.
I'm writing a diary. I keep a diary, in fact, for the running of the work. This helped me to remember everything that I do at the morning, especially that it is very hot. So it is better to write now, but because if you return back at your hotel, you will forget everything.
Examination of the planks discovered at Mersa Gawassis reveal the ancient Egyptians didn't use nails or metal. They fastened the pieces of wood together through a complex mortise and tenon system that our modern boat builders are attempting to copy. But as the work progresses, the shape of the planks, which have to be curved along their length and width, makes things very complicated. The rows of tenons and mortises must be made with greater, more painstaking precision. The fit must be perfect. The archaeologists are convinced the ship will become watertight when the wood swells after being launched. Two months later, their labor continues, piece by piece. The Pharaoh's fleet needed a captain. Hatshepsut chose Nehizi, a valiant soldier who had served her father in the past. When he agreed to take on this mission, Nehizi knew he'd be venturing into the dangerous unknown. The gods alone would decide his fate. In order to seek their favors, he had several cartouches of divine protection engraved on the stone anchors.
And then they've attached it down there, and then they're able to just...
35 centuries later, David Van is the captain who will follow in Nehizi's wake.
Because it's going to be so tippy, and once it gets rocking, it's going to...
Before he ventures into the Red Sea, the skipper comes to take a look at his boat.
I've never sailed anything like this. This is the kind of boat they were sailing up to 4,000 years ago. But compared to a boat now, of course, the technical term would be a pig. We would call it a pig now. You know, it's a beamy, heavy, short, fat boat that's going to move terribly through the water. I'm a little worried about this. I had a crack once in a boat, just a little hairline crack. And the title of my book about it is A Mile Down, because that boat sank in 5,000 feet of water, a big 90-foot, very strong steel boat, because of a little crack. And these are really big cracks. And I've been reassured by a couple of people that it's okay in wood to have these cracks, that from the drying process it's normal. I don't know.
A potentially leaky boat is one challenge. The rigging is another. The bas-reliefs at Deir el-Bahari show dozens of intertwined ropes and complex knots keeping the sail attached to the yard. What is most puzzling is how the ropes are wrapped around the mast. No other visual image of these boats exists. The only hope is that these ancestral techniques have transcended the ages. Cheryl travels from Alexandria to nearby Lake Barolus in search of a clue.
So, at Barolus, when I first saw these boats, the first thing that I saw was the short mast and the yoke on the mast, because suddenly I could see the relief from the temple. And exactly what the function of that yoke around the mast is for. Because all we see is the little twisted line, and in fact, it's the backstay, I think.
Yeah, I can see right now, I see some out there and there's no backstay, so that mast yoke is substituting for backstay.
Lake Barolus has some strange-looking flat sailboats with short masts and huge sails. The way the mast is fixed to the hull intrigues the archaeologist. An enormous knot made up of several ropes reminds her of the rigging seen in the bas-reliefs at Deir el-Bahari.
To me, this is just amazing. It's another one of those times when you can touch the past.
Right.
3,500 years ago, thousands of years ago.
The very same system.
People are using the same forces, the same mechanics, slightly different materials.
Yeah, so we'll have the mast and then two pieces of wood on either side, and then the tie going around the middle. And that should keep the wood from breaking and should be a very strong attach point for the line.
Okay.
In just one more month, the boat must leave the shipyard and head for the Red Sea. It's down to the wire as Maruz and the other shipwrights put all of their remaining energy into finishing it.
دي حاجة كويسة ونفتخروا ان احنا عملناها ونزلناها المية في احسن صورة. يعني حاجة جميلة خالص. ما كناش يعني حد يحلم بالموضوع ده.
A few minutes after the boat is launched, water seeps in through the tiniest cracks in the hull. According to the archaeologists, the wood should absorb the water and begin to swell. They predict it will be 2 weeks before the hull reaches maximum expansion and becomes watertight. The boat has now been in the water for 2 weeks. After 12 hours, all of the water is finally pumped from the hull. Mohammed leaves the boat, but is it watertight now?
On a un problème. Là, au début, c'était très bien parti. La construction, le choix du chantier, l'efficacité du travail, la durée du travail. Il y avait un rapport qualité et vitesse qui était très bien. Mais cela n'empêche pas qu'il y a un problème et il faut trouver une solution.
Archaeologists have never found any evidence to show that the Egyptians ever caulked their boats. So how can they make the boat watertight using an authentic, ancient technique? What did the Egyptians do? Mohammed and Tom will find the answer to their problem right in the shipyard itself.
So this is linen fiber.
Yeah.
I wonder what would happen if we put this between our planks.
For hundreds of years, people here have been stuffing plant fiber into the cracks between planks of wood as a method of waterproofing. In ancient times, other seafaring peoples, such as the Greeks, used beeswax to make their boats watertight. So why not use beeswax as well? With no other alternative or additional archaeological evidence, this becomes their chosen option. The boat has now been under construction for 10 months. The final touches are being made. 2 rudders are carved out of huge pieces of wood. Cotton sails, each measuring 15 meters in width, are woven. In the streets of Rashid, a dozen men are busy making the rigging. Using strands of hemp fiber, they twist together several kilometers of rope in different thicknesses.
صوت ساري اضبط على عندك ارفع عشان يسقط هنا ربنا هنا ربنا يا لله يا لله يلا رب النبي واسمع اليد صلي على النبي ايوه واحد يلا واحد
Congratulations.
عقبال الماشي بقى.
Now it's yours.
It's beautiful.
Now it's yours.
الحبل اللي قدام ده نشده عليه ونشده.
I'm really amazed to be at this point, to see this mast up finally, and we've been waiting, organizing this, and finally, okay, here it is, the mast is up. Now I'm just anxious to get on with the rest of it. Why do we have to break for lunch? I want to get the yards on board, sort out this mess of lines, make some order out of it, and just get on with it.
Before it leaves the shipyard, the boat is christened Min, in honor of a fertility god in the Egyptian pantheon. A few days before the original expedition set sail, Queen Hatshepsut had the temple priests create a statue of herself with the god Amun. It would be offered as a token of friendship by the expedition's captain to the inhabitants of the land of Punt. The winds were blowing in the right direction when messengers brought the news to the Queen that her fleet was finally ready to sail. All they required was her signal. She gave the order for the ships to depart.
Good, yes!
Almost a year after construction began, Min is ready for her maiden voyage. What seemed an impossible challenge has become reality. The boat engraved in bas-relief at Deir el-Bahri has come back to life 3,500 years after its first expedition. But now they are out on the open sea, new questions arise. Will the boat weather the gusty winds? Is it strong enough to withstand the swells of the Red Sea? Will it find the route Hatshepsut's fleet took to reach the land of Punt?
Yeah, well, I want to just go straight downwind first, see how that is, what the speed is, and then we can change a little, see how the speed is.
How much speed?
Yeah, just try to learn today.
Okay.
One of the crew's primary concerns is the rigging. The archaeologists have recreated, as faithfully as possible, the sail and mast system seen in the Deir el-Bahri bas-relief. But getting a hang of the ropes isn't easy.
When you look at the sail, it looks like we have a lot of lines going and that it's very confusing and complicated. The 16 below and 6 above, we never change those. They stay in place. So it's actually a much simpler rig than it looks like when you first look at it. We only have 4 lines to pull up the sail and 2 lines really to control side to side and 2 others that we don't really use. But that's it. So it's really simple actually, much simpler than it looks.
The boat seems to be going really well right now. We're surfing on some of these swells down to, 7, 8 knots sometimes. And getting a nice push from behind with the wind. It's going really well.
Min's voyage is a faraway echo of the journey Hatshepsut's fleet may have undertaken.
Don't pull hard on it.
At sundown, Nahisi's fleet probably lowered sails and came back to shore to rest, get their bearings, find water and cook. Tonight, Min is at anchor in a sheltered bay. How would Hatshepsut's crew have felt? Were they anxious about the sailing conditions, the strength of the breeze, or where they were headed? Did they fear for their lives? Hatshepsut nervously awaited Nahisi's return. The accounts of past expeditions made her anxious. Nahisi had warned her that she'd be waiting months before receiving news. Would her 5 ships succeed in reaching the land of the gods and return safely?
Most of us didn't sleep at all last night. Min was rocking really wildly, and there was a lot of wind. And today, there's too much wind to do the full sail. There's about 20 knots of wind, and that's too much for our mainsail. So we'll have to take that down and put up just the very small sail. And I think it'll be rougher on the rudders today. I think there'll be bigger waves. So not a lucky turn of events for us, because we've only had a couple days on this boat, and it'd be nice if the conditions could remain a little lighter. So we'll see.
Anticipating bad conditions, David and Cheryl had a second heavy weather sail made. Its smaller surface area should work better in strong winds. However, the crew is apprehensive about going out to sea this morning. Will Min cope in the wind and waves? The success of the project depends on her ability to withstand these conditions.
Okay, we need to do something pretty quickly here.
The waves are we had about 6 to 8 feet earlier. We did have a few bigger ones, and then a few that came in sets of 2 or 3 and pushed us around quite a bit so that our starboard rail was even with the water, and we took some water over the port rail, so that was certainly exciting.
She rode the wave really well. I mean, wallows like a pig, but you'd expect that with this whole ship, really. What I'm really amazed at is I'm not seasick.
At the end of the day, the cracking sounds at the rear of the boat are the only signal she's been through some tough sailing conditions. A few waves did throw her off balance, but Min was able to reach the place where they'd planned to camp. For the crew, this is a first success.
We had a few minutes today when we were coming into harbor tonight where it was very tempting. And the first mate said to me, he said, you know, we could just put some lights on the ship and take off. He said, we could sail a long way.
The archives in Egypt contain a papyrus on which it is written that 400 years before Hatshepsut, a steward named Henu went on an expedition to the land of Punt. The pharaoh, her royal steward Senenmut, and her captain Nehizi must have known about this journey. Henu's papyrus describes the events of his journey, but it does not reveal the location of the land of Punt. Studies of wind and current patterns for the Red Sea show that they travel southward from June to September, making them favorable for departing vessels. Is Punt to be found somewhere in Africa, modern Sudan, or in Eritrea? Or is it on the other side of the Red Sea, in Yemen or the Arabian Peninsula? To answer this question, Cheryl and Tom need to know what Min is capable of doing. Can she sail against the wind, allowing her to reach the far side of the Red Sea? Or is she only able to sail dead before the wind, forcing her to remain close to the coast? On modern boats, it is the rudder combined with the action of the sail that enables the crew to change direction. For Min, the matter is more complicated because of her shallow keel. Her crew needs to find out whether she can change course by filling or flattening the sail and by turning it in different directions in relation to the hull. A new experiment gets underway. After a few days of tests and adjustments, Min is able to do much more than run before the wind. She tacks, points her stern towards the open sea, and heads back towards the coast. The fact that the boat can make progress despite variations in the wind tells us the land of Punt could have been Sudan or Yemen. Min pursues her journey. The strong wind that was blowing for several days has now eased, leaving a heavy swell that challenges the boat and her crew. But they're in luck again. The swell settles and their journey continues. Day after day, the crew put Min to the test. They rediscover the actions of the ancient seafarers as if they had sailed back through time.
They were in a world that they knew much better than I know. And they had the ability to stop and wait when the winds are up like today. And yet they also knew where they were going, exactly what they would find there. And still, it was a huge journey for them. The chance to repeat one small part of it, even if we can't go all the way to the land of Punt, brings all of us that much closer to really appreciating the ingenuity, the creativity, the intelligence, the skills, the craftsmanship of our ancient predecessors. And it's a very humbling experience.
When Hatshepsut's fleet returned, most of the population made it to the shore to see the ships laden with extraordinary treasures. There was a dazzling procession of precious woods, rings of gold, semi-precious gems, ivories, animal hides and ostrich feathers, and a menagerie of animals, giraffes, panthers, and cheetahs. And among these marvels, the most valuable of all were the 31 live myrrh trees and other fragrant resins that Nahisi had brought back from Punt. Hatshepsut had all that she wished for. The precious incense from Punt had gained her the favors of the priests of Amun. Their appeasement allowed her to rule unchallenged for more than 2 decades. Hatshepsut, whose memory was desecrated and whose name was expunged from the roll call of pharaohs, could have been wiped forever from Egypt's history. Could she have imagined that many thousands of years after her death, her fleet's voyage would be so lovingly recreated, and her legacy raised from oblivion?
Coming up tonight, secrets, scandal and the absolute truth. What do our diaries reveal about us? Richard E. Grant investigates in the first part of a brand new series. Dear Diary is next.